Why does a legendary weapon barely appear in its own game? Why does one region insist the villain wields it, while another barely mentions it at all? And why does a fantasy series hide some of its wildest lore inside of a Sega-approved British comic book? Golden Axe is one of Sega's most iconic early franchises, an arcade-born hack-and-slash that helped define the Genesis era. The first game arrived in 1989 and was a genuine hit, a system seller that showed off the power of the Genesis. Its sequel, Golden Axe 2, while not as popular, was still a strong and successful follow-up. Together, these titles helped cement Golden Axe as part of Sega's early identity during the rise of 16-bit gaming. However, despite the series being named after a mythical relic, the Golden Axe itself is strangely underdeveloped. The story surrounding this legendary weapon is inconsistent. Marketing blurbs, instruction manuals, and in-game text rarely match each other. The Japanese, American, and European releases all tell slightly different stories of the same tale. And perhaps the most striking shift in the Golden Axe mythos didn't even come from a game. It came from a comic book. In May 1993, in the United Kingdom, a little-known anthology called Sonic the Comic published its first issue. While it would eventually become entirely Sonic-focused, the early issues featured multiple short stories based on Sega properties, often telling original tales, all produced with Sega's approval. And buried among these early strips was something unexpected: a fully developed and dramatically expanded version of the Golden Axe universe. Surprisingly, these weren't throwaway license strips by anonymous freelancers. Both Golden Axe comic book arcs, Citadel of Dead Souls and Plague of Serpents, were drawn by Mike White, a well-respected and long-established British comic book artist. So even though these Golden Axe stories appeared in a teen-oriented anthology, they were produced by experienced, respected creators. As far as the comics themselves, they premiered in the very first issue of Sonic the Comic on May 29th, 1993. The first series is called Citadel of Dead Souls and would run in the first 6 issues of the publication. Our 3 heroes from the first 2 games are here: Axe Battler, the fearsome barbarian; Tiras Flare, the warrior from the Amazon; and Gilius Thunderhead from the land of Wolood. In the games, the personalities of the playable characters aren't really expounded upon, and there is little in the way of dialogue. However, in the comics, these 3 are given very clear trope-oriented personality traits. Tiras Flare is capable and serious. Gilius Thunderhead is lighthearted, always hungry, and always making jokes. And Axe Battler is shown as a simple 90s barbarian, often portrayed as dim-witted. In the first panel of Part 1, we get a bit of world building. We see our heroes being attacked by reptile warriors, which is consistent with the stories in the manual and even some of what we see in the games. In the background is a fairly desolate Conan the Barbarian-style wasteland and a small market with stalls. Gilius is seen holding what appears to be a rat sandwich, which he throws at an enemy as Tiras and Axe quickly dispatch 2 other enemies. Almost right away, the 90s sense of attitude comes through as Gilius picks up the rat burger, stating there's no reason to let it go to waste. But before he can dig in, more enemies show up, including 2 Minotaurs and a Bizarrian, which are both featured in the games. Several original enemies seem to be here as well. At the end of page 2, we get our first glimpse of one of the many in-game actions this comic would feature in its pages. Each of the heroes begins to summon a low-level magic spell. In the Golden Axe games, each of the characters had their own form of magic. This fact seems to stay consistent. But interestingly, as they summon, a small effigy can be seen. The characters even say a short incantation. While this works on one of the Minotaurs, the other enemies simply shrug the attack off, with one of them even knocking back one of the earth projectiles and incapacitating Axe. Tiras Flare performs 2 of her signature moves from the games: a somersault kick and a double jump slash. Moments later, Gilius is seen doing his signature headbutt move. But he and Tiras are both suddenly wrapped up in enchanted ropes, seemingly at the behest of one of the mysterious new enemies. The newcomers identify themselves as Captain Rigiamortius. and the sorceress Ultima, both in the employ of a necromancer known as Blackspell. Unable to move and at the mercy of their enemies, Tiras and Gilius are led to a location known as the Citadel of Dead Souls, with Axe Battler unconscious and left behind. In the Citadel, we see the Sanctum Sanctorum of Sorcerer Blackspell, where the two are presented with a terrible reality. Blackspell has found the body of Dark Gould, the main villain of the second game, and he plans to use one of the heroes who fought to destroy Dark Gould as a sacrifice, along with the mystical power of the Golden Axe, to bring Dark Gould back to life. As the issue comes to a close, Tiras warns Blackspell that Gould will bow before no man, while back at the village, a group of people with seemingly nefarious intentions surround the unconscious Axe Battler. In Part 2, Ultima and Rigia throw Tiras and Gilius into Blackspell's dungeon. We can see the bones of previous occupants chained up in the background. Gilius seems altogether unconcerned with their plight, cracking jokes even as he's hung in chains. Meanwhile, back in the village, Axe Battler is being dragged to the stocks at the command of an old crone, who seems quite happy to watch him decay. In a strange sequence of events, he wakes up and is immediately released with no further trouble from his would-be captors. He even asks the old crone for information about the whereabouts of his friends. The old crone tells him about their fate in the dungeons, suggesting wizards in this world often make use of corpses. She even guides him as close to the Citadel as she is willing to go. Axe arrives outside of the Citadel, briefly fighting against a tentacled beast that consumes his Bizarrian mount. This occurrence doesn't seem strange to Axe at all, further illustrating the dark setting the game and comic take place in. Axe moves through the sewers below the Citadel, taking down a guard on his way before quickly being discovered by someone else. Blackspell, using some sort of magic to speak with Axe, taunts him before ordering Rigia to subdue him with a sleep poison. She sets off after him, riding another of the Bizarrians we see in the video games. Part 3 opens with Axe performing one of his moves from the game, Big Attack. He uses this ability to knock Rigia off her mount, which she quickly recovers from by hitting him with the sleep poison. Axe, now unconscious, is dragged to the dungeon and chained up with his friends. Sorcerer Blackspell casts an incantation on the very rock behind Tiras, causing it to come to life and walk her out of the dungeon, along with the Dark Wizard. As he leaves, he instructs Rigia to do away with Gilius and Axe, but remarks that she should keep their bodies in case he wants to reanimate and torture them later. Using his unchained legs, Gilius manages to redirect a killing blow from Rigia, causing it to shatter Axe's chains. Battler quickly knocks her out, and the two chain her upside down before escaping the dungeon. They find the Citadel eerily abandoned and encounter a fortune teller named Prophet, who informs them that Tiras and the Citadel have gone to a place called the Corpse Lands, where Tiras herself will be sacrificed and Dark Gould will awaken. Prophet offers to sell them 2 Bizarrians to help them make the journey, which they gladly accept. When they arrive at the entrance, they find it guarded by Ultima, who immediately summons a host of skeletal minions to attack. Axe and Gilius use their weapons and magic to crash through the skeletons and continue to battle Ultima off-screen. Meanwhile, in front of Dark Gould's gruesome and imposing tomb, Tiras is tied to a slab next to the massive villain's corpse. She seems to be counting on the sunrise to power her fire magic. Blackspell raises the golden axe and begins to incant. As he swings the weapon down on Tiras, her fire magic burns the bonds around her wrist and legs, freeing her. Suddenly, Dark Gould springs to life and lunges for Blackspell. Tiras takes advantage of the confusion and grabs the golden axe, beginning to fight off the horde of spectating enemy monsters that begin to rush her. Axe and Gilius seem to have dealt with Ultima and arrive on scene, helping Tiras to fight back the horde. In a dark turn of fate, the incomplete revival spell fuses together the bodies of Dark Gould and Blackspell. Blackspell is terrified of Dark Gould, and both of the villains command the horde to kill Axe, Gilius, and Tiras to complete the spell. Axe quickly clears the battlefield with his air magic. Dark Gould incapacitates Blackspell with a punch, and Tiras attempts to summon her remaining power to attack the monstrosity with a fire spell. However, she is too drained and has not yet regained enough of her energy. Gould shrugs off her attack and transforms into a massive two-headed bird, screeching towards them and carrying Axe Battler away into the sky. Gilius points toward a volcano in the distance, calling it Fire Drake Fell and insisting Gould is headed there with Axe. As the chapter closes, we see Axe being taken into the custody of Dark Gould's powerful minions. Gould informs him that he is living on borrowed time and will be used as a sacrifice to finish the spell to revive him. In the final issue of Citadel of Dead Souls, we get to see another mainstay of the game. Tiras and Gilius waylay two small robber elves, finding magic potions among their stolen possessions. In the first game, similar elusive elves could be attacked at different points in between stages and sometimes during a stage, to help the player find potions to power their abilities. After recovering their magic power, the two sneak their way into the fortress. Moments before Axe is tossed into a pool of lava, the heroes are reunited and fight off the enemies. Dark Gould and Blackspell attempt to summon more minions from the lava, but Tiras and Gilius use their charged magic to cause both a cave-in and an eruption within the volcano. The heroes escape as Dark Gould and Blackspell presumably perish in the explosion. As the first series comes to a close, the heroes remark that they need to return the Golden Axe to Uria, just like the primary mission in the first and second games. The second series was called Plague of Serpents and would also run for 6 chapters in issues 13 through 18 of Sonic the Comic. In this series, Gilius's home is a fortress called Rockguard. The trio are on their way to Uria to return the Golden Axe and decide to stop and visit the stronghold. As they get close, they're set upon by a large serpent. Tiras still wields the Golden Axe and quickly defeats it. Gilius finds it strange to have a giant snake so close to home, and as the group heads into the fortress, they find the inhabitants locked in a fierce battle. Bald men in robes seem to be using snakes to somehow hypnotize people, causing them to attack and indoctrinate the other dwarves around them. The leader is a man named Cabraxus. The group leaps into battle, but right away, Tiras is nearly entranced by one of the hypnotic reptiles. She manages to resist, using the Golden Axe to cut the snake down. Nearby, Axe Battler is not so lucky. He manages to kill the handler and snake attempting to entrance him, but not before falling victim to the hypnotic state himself. He wanders off. An old dwarf is losing the fight with one of the bald priests before Gilius runs in and saves him. It seems this old man is Gilius's father. He's severely wounded, but even in this state, he asks Gilius lightheartedly for something to eat. Nearby, Tiras is injured while trying to safely incapacitate 2 entranced dwarves. A priest of Cabraxus looms over her, but Chapter 2 opens up with her blocking his attack and using her somersault kick to quickly knock him back. She rolls to her feet and summons the power of fire to smite him. On the other side of the chamber, Gilius summons the power of earth to knock down a horde of priests closing in on he and his father. After the fight, we briefly see Axe wandering mindlessly through a tunnel beneath Rockguard, while above, the elders of the settlement meet to discuss their current situation. It seems this attack has persisted for 2 days, with the priests of Cabraxus having broken in through the Hamaranth maze of caverns below the stronghold. It seems Rockguard has a queen, and she is currently held captive. She was captured while defending the dwarves that live in Hamaranth, using a magical spear to fend off attackers for as long as she could. The dwarves have a cache of metal that has been infused with magic. The queen is the key to finding the horde, and Cabraxus wants that metal. After hearing all of this, Gilius decides to take matters into his own hands. They still don't know where Axe is, and Tiras is injured from the battle. Gilius takes the Golden Axe and prepares to leave when suddenly an angry woman bursts into the room and lunges at Gilius with an axe. He seems to know her and calls her by the name Yuki. As Chapter 3 begins, we see Gilius and Yuki struggling, with Gilius calmly calling her names. In frustration, she draws on the power of nature to entwine him with vines. Tiras attempts to subdue Yuki, but Gilius stops her. Apparently, this angry young woman is Gilius's sister. The elders seem to find all of this amusing and tell Gilius to take Yuki with him. They will enter through a service shaft, and the main army will hold off on their attack until Gilius can signal that the queen is safe. The duo narrowly miss Axe Battler, who was wandering around still under the hypnotic spell. Gilius argues with Yuki as they make their way through the tunnels, secretly being spotted by a talking snake, likely one of Cabraxis' spies. We see the queen, Silpantia Dragon Tamer, being held in a cage made of snakes. The snake that spotted the heroes reports to Cabraxis, and he angrily summons an underling, another wizard named Viprax, to take care of them. Viprax quickly finds the two and summons a group of large anthropomorphic snakes to attack them. Yuki and her brother fight to keep the snakes at bay. We see Gilius do his spinning axe attack from Golden Axe 2, knocking back all of the enemies around him. Yuki summons her nature magic. Interestingly, she calls on the name of a goddess called Flora. Just in time, she is able to restrain the snakes with her magical vines, protecting her older brother as he uses his own earth magic to finish them off. However, Viprax surprises them by turning his own hands into snakes and immobilizes both of them with a bite. He scrambles away to get help moving their bodies. Viprax returns shortly after with help. Hypnotized dwarfs using a cart to transport the two to Cabraxis. As they round a turn, Gilius falls off of the cart. Viprax scoffs that he just fell into a bottomless chasm, and Yuki cries out in frustration. Thankfully, it seems that Gilius was able to use the golden axe to cut into the side of the walkway and stop himself from falling. Cabraxis, now with Yuki as a hostage, threatens to kill her if the queen doesn't share the location of the enchanted metal. In Chapter 5, Gilius arrives on scene, cutting through the snake cage using the golden axe. The remaining snakes attempt to suffocate and constrict the queen, but Gilius is able to skillfully cut her free. He then headbutts Cabraxis to get Yuki free from his grasp. In response, Cabraxis summons more of the anthropomorphic snakes that Viprax had used. But working together, Gilius with the golden axe and Yuki with her plant magic are able to make quick work of them. Silpantia begins an incantation, seemingly about to use her magic. She calls out to elder dragons, the lords of the Bizarrians, and commands that they come down and destroy her enemies. In the final chapter of Plague of Serpents, and the final Golden Axe comic series to be printed in Sonic the Comic, a swarm of dragons rushes onto the scene, breaking through the rocks of the mountain above them to rescue the Queen of Dwarves. The enemies do their best to fight back, summoning large balls of snakes to hurl as projectiles, and even briefly entangling one of the dragons. Yuki and Gilius fight the priests as Cabraxis himself morphs into a massive snake, stretching high into the air. He begins to wrap himself around Cloudburner, the queen's dragon mount. But Gilius uses the legendary golden axe to sever the snake's head from its body. While it seems at the end like Viprax might have the last laugh and kill Yuki, Gilius hurls the axe and finishes him off before he can harm her. The priests of Cabraxis are defeated, and the queen and Rockguard are safe. After returning to the stronghold, Gilius learns that Axe Battler is returned, and that sadly his own father has succumbed to his injuries. In the short-lived tradition of his comic book character, he decides the best way to honor his father is for the group to have a feast. For a franchise built on a simple arcade brawler, the Golden Axe comics did something special, and then, just as quickly as they appeared, the stories were gone. A few dozen pages of lore that most fans never knew existed. Golden Axe may never have had a consistent canon, but for a brief moment in the early 90s, a handful of comic creators took this world and ran with it. Sometimes the most interesting parts of a classic game aren't found on the screen. They're hiding in the margins of manuals, magazines, and even inside of a Sonic comic printed in the UK in 1993. Thanks for watching to the end of the video. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more videos like it, consider subscribing to the channel. Leave a comment with your thoughts and experiences down below, and thanks for watching.